to go. Dr. Raghavan? Yeah, webinar is now facing, Facebook Live is on. Dr. Raghavan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's 6:01.
Yeah.
We are late by our standards, but we are permitted today.
Good evening, gentlemen. We have an excellent session today. It's on the future of movies and entertainment. Day 4, Southern India Channel webinar, and we thank MITRAA for the knowledge partner and Mr. Ravindra Senna Reddy to sponsor the event. I request President Mr. Ganapati and also the chairman of Trigen Group to kindly deliver the formal welcome address, please.
Thank you, Doctor, and good afternoon to all. Welcome to this webinar sponsored by Ravi Senna Reddy's Sri City, our own executive committee member. SICCI deems it a high privilege and honor to have all of you here. We have a very power-packed panel and therefore a very cerebral and a very exciting and interesting discussion ahead of us. The last couple of months have been very challenging for all of us here, as it has been for the rest of the world. And we are in, fair to say that we are in unknown and unfamiliar territory. And as we struggle to come out of it, it is the knowledge that we acquire from business and industry leaders is going to equip us to handle the situation better as we go forward. The last 2 months, one of the things that we always kept us away from insanity has been what Mr. Sarkar of Reliance Communication would probably call as content. It has been content that has kept us going. And we have been keeping ourselves alert and excited and staying afloat. And joining him today is Mr. Mani Ratnam, arguably India's most famous director. And it is always everybody's dream to be part of his movie. And combining with A.R. Rahman, he has produced some unparalleled entertainment to the moviegoers. And then we are privileged and honored, welcome Mr. Mani Ratnam, and we are privileged and honored to have alongside with us industry stalwarts like Mrs. Radhika Sharat Kumar, Sashi, Avm Shanmugam, Mohan Raman, Nanda Kumar, L. Suresh, our own friend and Rotary member and member of SICCI, Sanjay Wadhwa, who has helped Indians stay cheerful across the globe by exporting most of the movies that are produced locally, Mr. G. Tyagarajan, whose Badsha is a never before, never again kind of movie, Mr. Vikram Prabhu, and of course, Mr. Suresh Babu from Hyderabad. To get this panel excited and to set the context for what is arguably going to be a very cerebral and an entertaining evening is the big B of SICCI, Avm Bala Subramanyam. I invite Avm Balu to take over and then pass it on to dear Sudhir, our wonderful and amazing anchor. Thank you so much for all of you joining us, and over to our big B, Avm Balu. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganpa. Good evening to all. I have great pleasure in introducing Mr. Shibasish for today's webinar. Mr. Sarkar, media and entertainment industry, with over 25 years of corporate experience handling multiple verticals across films, television, animation, gaming content, and operation of digital and new media platforms. Currently, Group CEO at Reliance Entertainment, a part of Reliance ADA Group, which is counted among India's top private sector business houses. Prior to Reliance, held senior positions at Viacom 18, UTA, Disney, and Godrej Sarali. His academic qualification include being a certificate chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, and MBA with specialization in marketing. Next, I have the pleasure to introduce our age film director, producer of the Indian film industry, Mr. Mani Ratnam. His views will follow after Mr. Sarkar. Mr. Mani Ratnam hails from an illustrious film background. He is an MBA graduate from Bajaj Institute. He has proud privilege of introducing A.R. Rahman on an Oscar Award winner to the Tamil film industry in the movie Roja. He not only directed so many super hits, later ventured into his own production, which is a very active till today. He is now producing and directing a magnum opus, Ponniyin Selvan, a famous historical novel by famous writer Kalki. Now I have proud privilege of introducing Mr. Mani Ratnam. Mani is a keen golfer too. I would like to welcome galaxy of film personalities who are participating in today's webinar, including our SICCI, Radhika. Over to you, Sudhir, anchor to take over and conduct today's studies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balu. Just to add to what Mr. Ganapathy and Mr. Balu said, as Mr. Ganapathy rightly said, one reason why all of us managed to remain sane during the lockdown and were not really tearing at our hair, though that's clearly not an option I exercise, was because of the entertainment content on different OTT platforms. Because after all, there is a limit to how much of online Ludo you can actually play in a day. But now, as I say, the show must go on. The question is, how scarred is the entertainment industry by COVID-19? We know the symptoms, but we look forward to our two guest speakers to tell us the diagnosis and also suggest the medicines that are required in order to nurse the entertainment sector back to good health. I interacted with Mr. Sarkar a couple of days ago, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his views on this e-platform. He will make his opening remarks for about 7 to 8 minutes, after which Mr. Mani Ratnam, and may I say, this is absolutely a fanboy moment for me, sir, to be sharing this Windows space with you. Mr. Mani Ratnam will speak after Mr. Sarkar, and after which we will take your questions in the back half hour of this webinar. So keep sending in your questions, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions today for our two guest speakers and also the different panelists who are also part of our webinar today. Mr. Sarkar, your mic is live.
Thank you, Sudhir, and thank you, Mr. Ganapathy and Mr. Balu, sir. It's extremely humbling to come to a panel like this. And one goes back to a situation that probably for me is a great opportunity of a learning, the scope of learning that we will be able to hear from everyone else. And I'll try to take the next 7-8 minutes to share what is my perspective of the learning, whatever we have done in the last 5-6 months as we have seen the situation. To go back to start the discussion a little bit early, I think the whole world was in a completely hunky-dory zone, and there was not even a discussion of this till sometime second week of Jan or third week of Jan, other situation. And especially bringing the media entertainment sector as a point. The first point which came to us from people who are engaged in the media and entertainment sector, when in the third week of Jan, Chinese government announced a complete lockdown in the biggest period of their film releasing situation, which is during the Chinese New Year. Just before the Chinese New Year, it is like our Diwali or Pongal situation. Just before that, the Chinese government announced a complete lockdown. And yes, globally, different players who deal with China in some manner or other, we figured out, or we thought that there must be something serious that they have to take that call. Honestly, even from that period to almost the next 40-45 days time, so all the way till the end of February, probably end of February, or maybe first week of March, the global discussion or the global entertainment discussion, whether the health crisis or the entertainment issue discussion in our mind or in the most of the countries' mind, that it was a China issue, it was a very fragmented issue. It's not going to affect me. It's like always we think that a bad day is not going to affect me, it's going to affect somebody else. And it's a local issue and something or other will get solved. I remember in third week of February, sometime in the third week of February, I was in LA and I was traveling. And I figured out that in the country, absolutely, at least in India at that point of time, the airports are coming with some kind of a restriction that if flights come from China, what one should do or not. Cities like New York or cities like LA, absolutely, there was no such even restrictions or even thought of. But the second country by that point of time which started boiling as an issue was Italy. And we very soon figured out that which was a very centered China issue, now it is becoming also a European issue. So Italy, France, Spain, all those countries started slowly getting into a momentum and closer momentum of this whole health crisis. And country after country, they started closing down, getting into a lockdown, shutting down cinemas, shutting down production. And from an India perspective, I think only somewhere during the first week of March is some kind of a relevance, or we started believing that, okay, it's not that India will be completely, that it's not that the issue is global and will not get affected. The first time when those 12 or 13 visitors in Jaipur got affected, that is the time I remember our Honorable Prime Minister made a statement that how we should not celebrate Holi this year. That was somewhere in the first week of March, except, honestly saying, except one state where I looked at Kerala, and the Kerala state was taking a lot of progressive steps by that point of time. So between Jan to May, now it is almost 5 months. We have seen countries after countries have shut down. We have seen cinemas have started shutting down. We have seen productions have started closing. We have seen large corporates, including media corporates, are laying off hundreds and thousands of employees. Laying off started, whether at the cinema level or even at the production level. Even large conglomerates like a Disney or large, or an AMC or cinema, every single company globally, we started gearing up for the worst of the situation. In India, media entertainment, what we figured out, especially if I keep the discussion primarily for the films, what we figured out is that after, at least in the Hindi sector, what happened in the first week of March, we released one film, a relatively big budget film called Baghi 3. And after that, another film came called Angrezi Medium. But unfortunately, the film released on Friday, and Saturday, the government announced lockdown and everything got closed. That was somewhere around third week of March, and we are now almost at the end May. The reality of life is that along with the global media and entertainment situation, even India media and entertainment situation has also completely gone under the water. I mean, that's the kind of situation now. What has happened? The entire cinemas of these countries have got shut down, entire shooting have got shut down. So a film industry, which primarily depends upon creating content and releasing content, the two sides of the activity has completely stopped. People who have invested money, their monies are stuck. They have no visibility as of now of when to monetize. Shootings have stopped for even television and OTT of the world. The only thing which has kept us chugging in the whole situation is that we are seeing at a lockdown situation, we are at home and we are seeing content, at least at different OTT platform. In the television are already in the rerun, but at least on the OTT platform, we are seeing some contents which are already there, either a global content or Indian content or films, they were coming. Now, that's the negative part of the story. I mean, how bad it could have been. The positive part of the situation, and honestly, we live on hope, and we have to believe on hope, and we have to believe in positivity. And that's the only way we can fight this battle out, because it is not only a battle of a situation, there is no vaccination in the country or anywhere globally. The positive part of the situation is that some of the countries have started coming out of this mess. As we speak now, most likely China will probably kind of discussions when we are talking with them, we are getting a figure. As we know that South Korea never shut down their cinemas, and they probably continued with some footfalls and etc. And they are looking at probably somewhere increasing. I mean, of course, with every one step forward, there are a couple of steps which there is a problem, because some incidences are coming out, some incidences are getting hold back, and people are again getting into a shell. Every government is trying their level best. But the reality of life is that largely, majority of the countries are looking to open their cinemas somewhere during the month of July. And honestly, there is one gentleman, there is one maker who is probably, whose whole belief and who is probably holding this fort and getting that confidence is probably Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan has announced his film Tenet, which is currently slated for 17th of July. And probably with that announcement and with that confidence, they have already started their marketing campaign. So most of the European countries are planning in some manner with restrictions and with regulation how the film industry, how the cinema theaters can again start getting open up. That is one end of the situation. The other end of the situation is also, so what are we noticing? We are noticing that countries like Germany, countries like Spain, countries like Italy, they are countries like UK, even most of the states of North America, they are all gearing up to a situation that they will, by end June, mid July, they are all gearing up to a situation that they will have to open the cinemas to get Tenet released. And probably in somewhere, the global film industry is depending upon that one film coming and the confidence coming back. What is the belief? The belief is that probably after 5 months, 6 months of in the lockdown and in the cooked up situation, practically one message is coming stronger and stronger, that people are probably, if there is a confidence that there is a certain amount of health and hygiene issue which can be maintained and certain amount of protections can be given at a cinema level, people are all willing to come back to the cinemas. As many some research and some reports which are coming even at a North America or even at an India level, we are seeing some report that broadly saying that if audience get a certain kind of confidence that in the cinema there will be a definite level of protection, there is a definite level of confidence building, audience are going to come back to the theaters, which is a huge positive sign as of now. The other end of the situation, that okay, if this is the situation that when cinemas are likely to open up, what is happening on the content creation side, I think content creation or shooting have already started in some places. For sharing some ideas, like the shooting have already started in South Korea, it has started in Iceland, it has started in Finland, it has started in some part of some other Scandinavian countries. So slowly, it has started in UK. So slowly but clearly, we are all gearing up for a new normal, and we are all learning for a new normal that, okay, the shooting has started in some part of the world, and here closer home, and I'm sure I'm willing to hear more from my other panelists. We definitely know that both Tamil Nadu and Karnataka have given some indication that in terms of at least television and OTT shooting, they are allowing. Probably another month, 45 days time, we'll see at least in some manner the content creation also will start. So that's the positive part of the situation, the way Sudhir started, that we live on hope. What keeps us chugging and going is probably the storytelling and story consuming. Yes, the health crisis is not getting sorted out in next 2 months down the line, but we have to live with it. The world has to move on. And with the restrictions and regulations, I am very hopeful and positive that the world will take its own course, and cinema industry and the content creation industry will take that journey forward, catering to millions and millions of audiences across the globe.
Right, Mr. Sarkar, thank you very much. Lots of talking points that you have left us with, and we will pose a lot of questions to you after Mr. Mani Ratnam's remarks. Mr. Mani Ratnam, as the craft of storytelling, I mean, is it going to be very different in a Corona world? We would love to hear from you. Mr. Mani Ratnam.
Yeah, hello everybody. This is like in the Wimbledon finals when suddenly rain comes down. The stadium gets closed, the players go back in, wait, they don't know when it will reopen again. And you have to come back later when it's open, maybe the next day, maybe a couple of days later. It opens and they get back to the game. You know, that everything changes, their rhythm has changed, their momentum has changed. The weather, if it's closed, then the atmosphere has changed. But the game goes on, and not to make it look trivial, but I think we are in that kind of a thing that, the game has changed, but we will carry on, I'm sure, and everything, will find its own way. We have had changes before, film industry, especially production and exhibition, we've had lots of changes, right from the time talkie came into practice, everything changed from the way we shot to the way it was released. And then color came in, and then sound came different, became digital, film became digital. And every time, the production and the exhibition got reinvented. The whole cycle adapted and it changed. Only this time, the change is coming from an external source. We are forced into a form in which it's changing. And as I see it, predominantly what will change is two ends of the production cycle. I think the pre-production will not get affected too much. The production will get affected. Post-production will not get affected too much. But exhibition will get, which is the most important aspect of for us, will get. I think production will change dramatically. You know, I'm in the middle of a film based on a 10th century, and I have a lot of sequences which require crowd. I have war sequences, which needs a lot of, effort and crowd. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I know for sure that I will do it. We'll have to find ways. I think these restrictions just open up, and luckily for us today, the technology has improved. There is so much in terms of, computer graphics that have come in. So we'll have to find different ways, I think, to adapt, to get into a situation where we make sure that we are protected, that there's hygiene, and, in terms of actual execution, that we practice, that we don't jump the gun, that we don't just run in a hurry as soon as they open up, but learn step by step from people who are shooting outside and from our own experiences, to take one step at a time and see, and then go towards a finish of a film. But the more important thing is the exhibition sector, the theaters, which require the crowd and which, needs to find ways to keep people safe. And once, like Mr. Sarkar told, once, somebody is sure that, are confident to come into theaters, I'm sure that we'll all be back in the theaters. There's no other way of watching a cinema, at its best, other than being in a screen with, 500 other people in the darkness and watching magic happening in front of us. So I'm very sure that, we will be able to sail through with enough changes in it. But what we possibly require is a little bit of help. I think the fact that the immediate theater release is going to be difficult, and that market is going to get eroded, means that I have to make sure that my cost of my film is brought down, is manageable to make the filmmaking viable, which means, people involved in it, especially big stars and bigger technicians, will have to understand and help in reducing the price, reducing the cost, and we work towards making sure that the film industry remains afloat. Other than that, I think also we possibly will require a little bit of help from the government in terms of, this is an industry which is just not simple entertainment. We do so much more. We put hope into people, we put dreams into them, we put smile onto them, and, and it takes a lot of time of the people, that they invest, and this is their, in some form, an emotional and, mental balance that, this industry, this entertainment sector provides. So government needs to take care at this juncture, just like it's taking care of all medium and small scale industries. I think film industry also requires that support and, reduction and a little bit of help, I'm sure, that the government will be able to do. And I'm hoping that we'll be back on our feet very soon.
Right, Mr. Mani Ratnam, for your opening remarks. So you made a Wimbledon analogy, but would you agree that at this point in time, when the rain has interrupted play at the Wimbledon, it's advantage Corona?
I hope not. I hope not. It's just the same for both sides, so it's okay. It'll come through.
Okay, but I think the rest of the world needs to kind of pull up its game to make it deuce and then win the point. But my first question to Mr. Sarkar, you spoke about how the industry in different parts of the world is trying to get back to normal. But do you envisage a situation, say by the end of 2020, when masks and popcorn can actually coexist?
See, as human being, we are absolutely always open to adapt and adopt. That is culturally we are, right? I completely agree with Mani sir that the experience of seeing a film on a large screen with a 500 audience, that experience is unique. Now, fact of life, it becomes, let me give you a slightly different analogy. say 5 years back or a few years back, when there was an extremist attack on the Bombay, and suddenly within the next few months or and on the hotels and everywhere, we suddenly figured out the level of security, whether at an airport, whether at a 5-star hotel, or whether at a cinema house, everything changed rapidly.
What you call this?
Now, fact of life is that if audience starts believing that, okay, if I have to come to cinema hall, I have to wear a mask, but I still want to the cinema hall, I think that's not a problem. If audience have to think that, okay, I'll forego my popcorn, but I still want to see the cinema hall, I am a strong believer that audience will come back and they will adapt to the situation.
Okay. The other question, Mr. Sarkar, is, we have seen in both Hindi cinema as well as regional cinema, the whole culture of 100 crores, 200 crores, 300 crore budget movies. Do you see that kind of culture changing? And also perhaps time has come for big stars to take a pay cut, at least in the near future?
So I agree the point what Mani sir said. So what is going to happen, Sudhir, is two parts. One part is there are probably in the whole country put together, there may be 25, 30 films which are in an unfinished shape. Shooting complete, not complete, etc. I mean, which are the recognizable, decent films, right? Or maybe a little more, maybe another 10 films put together. Now, if a film is already on the floor and if a film has already been shot, or if it, like from a Reliance's perspective, there are two decent sized films, one Surya Vamshi and one 83 World Cup. Now, both the films we are almost about to release, one in 1 week time and one in 3 weeks time. So there is for me, there is no possibility of thinking that can anything happen on the cost structure. But if you are going to put a new film now, and if you are going to put a new film onto the floor, we have to estimate that there are 3 streams of revenue which is going to get affected or impacted. One, domestic theatrical. Second, overseas theatrical. Third, the pay TV business or the broadcasting right. The reason being, I was in another panel few days back, the fact of life that because the overall economy, global economy has got into a recession, almost in the last 2 months, the broadcasters have lost almost 85% of their ad revenue. So if the broadcasters are not going to earn money, they are not going to pay the same amount of money for the satellite. That's a reality we have to be aware, and we have to embrace that fact.
That's right.
Definitely, the digital revenues are going to get stronger. So we all need to now estimate our new revenues and structure the project. It is not only an actor or a technician. I think from a producer to every craftsman or every actor or producer, they all have to sit together and find out that what structure I should make the movie so it is reasonable. If it is not, the producer will just wait and see that, okay, I'll wait for another 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and I'll not put a new film. That reality have already started happening. And I'm sure that correction will start working.
Okay. Mani sir, a question coming in from Pranav Kumar, who asks, how do you find the motivation during this kind of a lockdown period to stay creatively productive and focused through writing and otherwise?
I think it's not a choice, is it? It's the same for everybody in this world. This period is similar. And the only way you keep yourself is keep your mind active, it's very easy for a filmmaker or a writer because you can still write. It doesn't cost you anything. You've got your table, you got your laptop, and you can still write. That keeps you going.
Right. Someone like Ram Gopal Verma has finished shooting a movie during this lockdown period. What's your take on something like that? And what have you been writing apart from working on the movie, which is in production stage as far as you are concerned?
Yeah, I think Ram Gopal Verma is capable of doing anything. So I'm not at all surprised that he's done that. Yeah, but what I've done is possibly, work on a few short films that we are trying to do, for the digital platform. And, working on future scripts.
Right. The other thing is about the OTT platforms, which, as I said, have been providing the entertainment quotient to a lot of people who are within the lockdown, during the lockdown. Do you see the whole attitude of filmmakers towards OTT platforms also changing as a result of what we have seen over the last 2.5 months? Mani sir first, and also I would want Shibasish to react to that.
Yeah, I think, when television came, we had the same issue. When DVDs came in, we had the same doubts, and VHS came, we had this. It will be there. It doesn't eat into your main thing. It is another avenue, which is very good. and it caters to a lot of audience who are not coming to the theaters. And therefore it is not either or. I feel, I think it is different. You have different kind of baskets which can go and, you know, feed each one of these.
Okay. Shibasish?
Yeah, I tend to agree, because both platforms will continue to exist and coexist. There was always, for a long period of time, there used to be a belief that only a certain kind of content or certain size of content are coming to the platform. But even if you look at globally, if you look at if Michael Bay is doing a film for Netflix, or Martin Scorsese is doing a film for Netflix, and Irishman is coming on Netflix, or any other global platforms. So I think audience are getting tuned and used to a situation that, okay, if for a film I have to see at a home and I want to enjoy, I don't think it is not either or situation. But I agree with Mani sir that the experience of the two is completely different. An experience of seeing a film in the cinema hall vis-a-vis at home, and both are going to coexist. I mean, I can give you one data, which will be a very interesting data, is that last 2 years, when both in the global, even the global OTT platform situation, we have seen the maximum level of growth from Amazon, Netflix, Disney Plus. I think now almost every platform, every cinema, big studios are coming out with their own platform. At the same period of time, the theatrical industry globally has also seen the biggest growth. So it is not cannibalizing. If there is an interesting content, consumers are going to that content for a theater, vis-a-vis a section of consumer is going back to an OTT at home and consuming a different content. So I think both will grow.
No, why I asked this also was because of what we saw from Inox kind of expressing resentment over some of the movies from both Tamil and Hindi being released on some of the OTT platforms. So do you see, Mani sir, going forward, filmmakers will decide right at the outset, okay, this is meant for an OTT platform and this will be for a big cinema release? Do you think that kind of compartmentalization will come right at the pre-production writing stage itself?
I think so. I think, you know, this is what I feel, that the kind of audience that's coming to the theaters have changed over the last 15, 20 years. The group that is coming are predominantly youngsters and, you know, and men. The middle class and the women have reduced to a large extent. They do go. When a Bahubali comes, they all go. But rest of the time, they've reduced. So it is possible to make those kind of stories and reach those kind of audience who are not coming to theaters through an OTT platform. So when your content is, you know, fits into that bracket, you will go into that. So it just opens up, gives more avenue for a maker.
One question, I mean, related to this is being asked by Naren. He says, on a positive note, has the pandemic opened up avenues for small filmmakers who are making a lasting impression using the OTT platforms? Mani sir.
Yeah, I think with or without the pandemic, I think they're making a tremendous impact, these small films. It gives them the freedom to, you know, think abstract, think very tangential. And I think it's tremendous growth in that, in terms of content and in terms of style and in terms of presentation. So that has got nothing really to do with the pandemic. I think they were anyway coming up and they will, you know, definitely make a big mark.
Okay. Selva Kumar wants to ask you, Mani sir, as a director, what kind of screenplay and picturization would be apt to show post-COVID family function get-together scenes, office scenes, romantic scenes, etc., keeping social distancing and wearing a mask in mind?
No, I'm a professional. I get paid money to answer these questions. I write it as scenes, make it as a film, and then show it.
Right. So we are no longer going to go to the old times of two flowers coming together to convey a romantic scene.
No. Yeah. That, you know, I don't think it's really, you know, we have to find ways. That's all. I think any restriction just opens up another avenue. We have another way of telling the story. So we'll be okay.
Right. Shibasish, the other question is about the censor certification as far as the films that released on OTT platforms, including the web series. Do you think censor certification required for feature films as against none required for all the web series that are on the OTT platforms puts them at a major disadvantage? This question comes from AVR. What are the disadvantages and do you support censor certification for web series as well?
You saw the gallery view and
So I think honestly, for a film coming to an OTT or a content coming on the OTT, it is not only in India but globally there is no concept of any censor certificate. So I strongly believe that if a story is coming at a OTT and if there is no requirement of a censor certificate, that should be continued. Today in India or even globally, the concept of censor is only for a theatrical release or your television release. So whatever, but globally for OTT or digital releases, there is no concept of having a censor certificate.
Censor certification. Mani sir, lots of questions I can see coming in to know about your Ponniyin Selvan project. What is the status of the project? I read a news report which said that immediately after the lockdown, you will try to get bulk dates of all the actors so that you can finish the shooting part in one go. All the people listening in want to know what is the status of the project.
Yeah, we are well into the project. So we are waiting for the, for it to clear up a bit and then reassemble, and we'll go ahead and finish it quickly.
Okay. And when is the release date likely to be? Are you looking at a release date? Not locked it.
Right now, we are looking at the starting date of reshooting, So
okay.
we won't mark the release date at this point of time without knowing when we can recommence,
Okay. But do you see a sense of concern and apprehension among the technical crew, the actors, the spot boy, the light boy, everyone, once the lockdown is lifted, and yet there will be a sense of apprehension on the sets? And how do you plan to address that concern and apprehension?
Yeah, we just have to take one step at a time. We just have to be aware that this is a problem that we have. And we have to, first of all, make sure we can be as safe as possible. And all the precautions that are required needs to be taken. Like I was saying, we have to reinvent the way we shoot. We can't have this 200 people crowd, unit, that bigger unit anymore. We have to manage with minimal people, and each one, operating at different times in different zones, not interacting so much. So, I mean, there've been several protocols which have already been put out, and different companies working out in detail how it can be done. So there are a lot of minds which have started thinking of how to, get back to shooting once this lockdown is over. So we will be able to take a step at a time and get there.
Okay. Mr. Sarkar, does the return on investment change dramatically in terms of the financials when you are looking at a release on an OTT platform as opposed to a theaters? How does the entire financial dynamics really differ and work?
So honestly, what currently is happening in the market is, of course, there are certain films which are finding their window and getting into an OTT release and etc. And from those producers' point of view, between the buyers sellers' point of view, they're reaching a commercial solution and getting across. I think the producers are taking an informed decision. If a producer is taking a decision that if he has invested a certain amount of money and is expecting a certain amount of return, I don't think there is any distress sale happening in the market. To give you an example, I bring up this reference every time, is that when Troll Wall 2 released, and that's on a TVOD, or a pay-per-view, when the Universal film released, they ended up getting up close to probably $100 million, and the company was never ready for that kind of revenue, probably even if they would have released theatrically. So everybody got excited, but it will also have to be figured out in the mind that everybody was locked down and the film got consumed. To answer your question, I don't think that either there is an astronomical margin people are making or people are making a distress sale. The films which are going on a digital, whether small, medium, even big budget films are going, all are going on a merit, and it's both parties are agreeing on a commercial term which makes sense for both of them. That's what is the real.
Mani sir, Supriya asked this question, and it's an interesting thought. Post-COVID, is there a possibility of Indian movies duration reducing to say 90 minutes to about 100 minutes, as opposed to a 2-hour plus kind of a duration now, because the production time will reduce and more movies can be screened on in theaters? Do you see that kind of a possibility happening, or will it depend entirely on the story and screenplay?
It should entirely depend on the story and screenplay. And for the next 1 year, where this has been, invariably films that are under production are the ones that will go in. And I don't see them changing their script drastically for this. Two, the ones that are going to start also would have had the scripts done mostly. They might tweak it a bit, but I don't think they will, risk reinvent it by reducing something like, 25% or 30%. So I think, if somebody is coming to theater and somebody is comfortable coming to theater, then, we might as well give them a full meal.
Priyanka Sharma wants to know, Mani sir, if going forward, should National Film Awards also include films which are released on OTT platforms?
Yeah, I think there's a debate that has been going on, globally. But yes, I think all over the world, we've started recognizing that, films are films, whether it's made for OTT or for theater. So I think slowly it is opening up, and they will get recognized, I'm sure.
Okay. I mean, you are a master storyteller. So when you sit down to write, do you think only not about the medium, but as a story for aspiring young writers who are getting into the business of writing, into the craft of writing rather? Are there any specific 1 or 2 tips that you'd want to give in order to say, if you're writing for an OTT, you need to bear these kind of things in mind. And when you're writing for the big screen, you need to have these couple of things in mind. Is there a basic difference?
I don't know whether I would really think it's a different, because I would say there are only 2 things that matters: what you want to say and whom you're saying it to. Those are 2 definitions you need to have in mind before you get down to writing. If you have clarity on what you want to say, then that is 50% solved. And if you know that you're going to make a mainstream film, or you're going to make a film which is going for the festivals, that is a priority. Or you're going to make something which is very personal. That is a decision that you have to take, which is your audience, and then you get into writing.
Right. Mr. Sarkar, away from the OTT platforms and the big cinema is also the very big world of television soap operas, the television serials. I don't know if Radhika Sharat Kumar is still online with us. Mr. Sarkar, first I would want to know from you as to what would the same kind of changes also apply to the television industry, or would the dynamics be a little different?
No, even for a television industry, we are constantly engaged with both INV minister in the central government as well as the different state government level, as the Producers Guild of the Television and Film Producers Guild. The fact of life is that there are substantial changes are expected even in the television shooting per se. Definitely television is in a little WhatsApp situation, because all channels virtually in last couple of months are running only on the rerun, because for films, while there is no way out, but television programming is going on. So it's a dichotomy. On one hand, there is no prime time news shows. At the same point of time, there is no advertising revenue. So someone has to put a leap of faith that, okay, I am putting the news shows, and one has to hope that the advertising revenue comes back, right? But yes, television in as many states as the governments are engaged into a discussion of allowing the television shooting, the similar kind of lot of limitation, the number of hit counts, the number of do's and don'ts, the number of what are the process of safety mechanism. I personally feel that the television shooting will kickstart first in most of the states, followed by OTT, and then probably by film.
Right. I can see Radhika Sharat Kumar also on the screen, but I think her mic is mute. We would want to know from you, ma'am, as to what you think is the way forward as far as the television industry is concerned.
As far as television is concerned, I think we'll be the first to bounce back. Because we can restrict a lot of things in production itself. But the thing is how fast we can go, because confidence level is very, very low with technicians and actors who are not very confident. Although the government has told us that we could go ahead and shoot with 20 member crew. People don't want to come into the sets because they are not confident. So that is a challenge we need to first get over. I think once few shootings go underway, then they would then we can see how it goes. Channels, of course, they know they will bounce back, because it's not every day that they can keep watching reruns. So
Exactly.
the content has to happen. So all of us are geared, but only thing is we just are waiting for things to cool down a little bit. And definitely the dynamics for television also must change. Yeah.
Okay. I can also see Mr. Mohan Raman on the screen, and I would like to bring him in as a film historian who understands the grammar and the history of filmmaking. How do you, Mr. Raman, see the present situation right now, and how do you see it evolving? Say, if you are talking about this in 2030 or 40, how are we likely to look at the 2020 situation from the entertainment sector point of view?
I would probably look at it as one more turning point. I think Mr. Mani Ratnam was very clear when he said we saw the advent of the VHS, then the CD, then the DVD, then the OTT, and somewhere in between film, celluloid left and digital came. These are all transition points, and post-COVID, I don't really think there is going to be a huge change in terms of how the film is seen per se by the various sections of the audience. The OTT guys will see it on OTT. People who will wait for the rerun to come in, for the television rights to come and be screened on TV will see it. Those who would like to go and see it on theater in the cinema manner will still continue to do so. So things, it is just that in those days you had Trichy, Tanjore, North Arcot, South Arcot, Chengalpet in such areas. Like that, OTT has become one more area, just as television rights has become one more area. So it is a question of, if you, people always say somebody makes a city flavored movie or somebody makes a rural flavored movie.
Right.
They keep their audience in mind. But one question which was asked earlier, which I'd like to answer, I was part of the jury last year for film writing. That is books on cinema.
Yes.
And I tried to make a recommendation that the government must consider people who write brilliantly, but write on internet websites and platforms.
Okay.
I mean, for instance, I received our good friend Bharadwaj Rangan's papers.
Yes.
They were top class. All the jury panelists said, this guy deserves it. Then we discovered that everything was written for a film website. So it was therefore not qualified. So we tried to tell them they must take up this. So let them first do that before they think of taking OTT and other things. But in that case, the censorship query will also get answered, because it has to be something which is censored by the government of India for them to consider. So all sorts of issues are there in the other two questions, not related to this question which you asked.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mohan Raman, for your thoughts. And I must say, I really like your lockdown look. Mr. Sarkar, Priyanka has his...
The man responsible for the look is on this panel.
Who is that?
Take a guess, my friend. Take a guess.
I think we can take a guess. Okay, Mr. Sarkar, there's a question from Priyanka for you. The Maharashtra's Chief Minister has asked producers to identify green zones for shooting. Has there been any progress on that part? And would that be something which all production houses will now start looking at?
So yes, I think from a Producers Guild point of view, and all the television and the film producers, we have met Maharashtra CM, and we have submitted the do's and don'ts and our SOP and guidelines, what we want to follow both for television as well as film. He kindly have shared the thought that yes, I mean, if you want to look at a situation that is it possible to start shooting in Bombay in a near future in 30 days time, that the answer probably is no. I mean, I agree with what Radhika madam was saying, that even if the permission comes, the local people, the people who have to come to the shoot for that, they have to have that confidence. But in Maharashtra, there are areas where there are green zones, or there are areas where maybe your entire Konkan belt, the Solapur belt, or Sindhudurg belt. So people have to explore, but not necessarily whether infrastructure is there, how one can take the unit there, it is possible to travel or not. But at least the discussion has started in that spirit.
Okay. Mr. Vikram Prabhu, if I may bring you in, a lot of the talk so far has kind of revolved around the production angle, the creative angle. what do you think will be the attitude of the actors? And when I say actors, I mean across the spectrum, the big stars, the leading stars, as well as the support staff. What do you think will be on their minds when shooting actually starts afresh? Mr. Mitra.
Hi. I think, see, we as the human race are going through this whole thing as one. So I don't think there's going to be any difference as to how we're going to approach this. I think it's the common man's. I guess you can just say, I have to be comfortable enough to go out, and I have to be more comfortable to interact with another person, either in front of camera or behind. It doesn't really matter. So it kind of comes down to like how human you are and how comfortable you can be out. It's this fear factor that everyone's put into our head, and as the days go by, it's you think it's getting better, but according to countries, it's actually getting worse. It depends on the kind of habit that we have. And say, for example, I keep watching the news about this Hong Kong situation, about, like they're going into protests and everything, and they're out protesting on the streets. So I asked a bunch of friends in Hong Kong, I was like, why are you guys like moving into this? Aren't you aware of COVID? Aren't you scared of it? And all he said was, no, we are past the COVID because our citizens actually like really took good care of it. They were very aware of what they needed to do, what they shouldn't, and then they just moved on. And now they're into this whole political aspect of it. So when we think about our country, the first thing that really pops up into my head is the whole taskmark situation, right? So that isn't something to be proud of. And you think of cinema in a way where there is you maybe just segregate it into like two different parts. One, fanatics, and one, people who actually like take time to go watch cinema with their families. And the second group isn't going to go until they know that everything is fine.
Things get better.
First group will go. Maybe like 80% of that fanatic group will go. But ultimately, I see that there's one thing in Tamil that we say, "Usi pota sariyairum." There's this. You put an injection, everything is fine. That I think that kind of mentality has to come and be given through the fact that we do have something that will kill the virus, that can be taken care, and then I think everything will be gung ho. You're not going to be able to lock down anyone at home. So I think it's just a basic thing about being human and being comfortable.
Right. Mani sir, Prashant Gorela has a question. Will outdoor shooting or shooting on foreign locations be the same anymore, given the kind of given the fact that Europe hasn't kind of covered itself with glory in the manner in which they handle the entire COVID situation? Same goes for the USA. Or will more and more shooting take place on studio locations around the country?
Well, I think logic tells me that we'll have to start shooting here first before any international travel, and which requires a lot more elaborate preparation, and it requires clearance from two countries. So right now, I don't think anybody will look at an international shoot. They will first make sure that we can do it here, we can do it well, we can do it safely. And once we're confident that we can actually go ahead and do it, then we'll start taking further steps.
Right. The last bit of the chain as far as the entire movie business is concerned are the cinema theaters, the exhibitors, and they have been empty for the last 2.5 months or so. Even within the cinema theater space, there are of course the multiplexes in the urban spaces, and then there are the single screen theaters. Many people have been saying that the single screen theaters will find it difficult to manage in the near future, given the fact that they may not have the funds to change the seating arrangement within the theater, ensure Sir?
Yeah, you're good to go, Sudhir, please.
Yeah, Manisa, I just was asking about the exhibition space as to what kind of changes do you see, especially with regards to the multiplexes and the single screen theaters?
I think it's the question should go to Suresh or Sanjay Wadhwa, somebody who is more akin to that than me.
Okay. I'll put the question to Mr. Sarkar, and then Mr. Sanjay Wadhwa can also give us his thoughts on this.
So, Sudhir, I think, yes, I think if somebody look at a sheer balance sheet level, probably the multiplexes or maybe the more organized companies have a better resource work in terms of the do's and don'ts and the processes what they have to follow. But I personally don't think that single screen will not be able to live up to the requirement of the expectation because and probably at a single screen level, probably the challenges are a little bit less while they have to follow a certain kind of norms and etc. It is not necessarily they have to, I mean, when a multiplex chain have to follow a norm, they have to decide about their 700 screen, what they have to do. But at a single screen level, probably each individual investor, each individual owner will take their call. Ultimately, they have to gear up to a situation that they have to give the confidence to the audience. Now, whether that audience is coming to a single screen or the audience is coming to multiplex, it will be the owners on the owners of that plexes of the chains. And I'm pretty confident. I'm speaking with many exhibitors throughout the last few months. People are all gearing up to make those corrections and changes. There's absolutely no problem.
Mr. Wadhwa?
See, once we have an SOP done, I mean, I'm sure whenever the theaters open up, all the multiplex associations or even the single screen people will have to submit a plan to the respective governments as to how they are going to safeguard the people coming in. So they'll have to follow. It becomes like, it's necessity. So it'll become like a rule. Like everybody, for example, if you go out today without a mask, the cop catches you and finds you. So there's going to be an SOP there put in place, and I think they will monitor it. But maybe 6-8 months, 1 year down the line, when we have a vaccine, then things kind of might get relaxed. But right now, everybody is more in the mental state of mind of the consumer coming in. Also, is something we have to look at, whether they will be willing to come. And unless they don't have the confidence that the theater is taking care of it, they would not like to come in.
Great. Mr. Wadhwa, thank you very much. It has been a very enlightening discussion. Lots of thoughts coming in. As Mr. Mani Ratnam said right at the beginning, it's like in the Wimbledon, it's like a rain break. But to use a cricket analogy, I hope the entire Duckworth-Lewis method doesn't go against people all over the world. Thank you, Mr. Sarkar. Thank you, Mani, sir, for joining us. May I request Sanjay Bhandari to propose the vote of thanks?
You have to unmute.
Sanjay?
Yeah. Thanks, Sudhir. At the outset, this is one of the most overwhelming evenings with so many stalwarts on the panel and the gallery. I didn't know which way to look, whether to look straight, left, right, up or down. With the presence of so many stalwarts, the people...
It's a multi-starrer, Sanjay ji.
This is a multi-starrer.
Yeah. It looks like that old Manmohan Desai film, where you had people, heroes and heroes and heroes coming out of the screen.
A SICCI blockbuster, if you will.
Yeah. So, on behalf of SICCI and on behalf of my very good friend and the president of SICCI and director of MITRAA Ganapati, on behalf of Dr. Raghavan, and on behalf of past president Avm Bala sir, and on behalf of MITRAA, let me thank first Mr. Shibasish Sarkar. Toma ke aneka dhonyobad Sarkar ji.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really pleased. I'm really humbled to be a part of this session.
Then all of us in the circle spoke that we should be Reliance India. And you are there in every footprint of our lives. And what will be an entertainment industry without Reliance? And you sitting at the helm of the affairs and giving us a great amount of confidence that things will be back to normal and people will be thronging back to the screens. And that is a very heartening thing to listen from you in this COVID times when people are talking of so many depressing things. The one thing which I noted in this evening was none of the speakers spoke about anything which was depressing. And that's the big thing about it. And thank you very much, Shibasish Sarkar. And we would like to interact with you very further.
Thank
you. Sir, to one of the most beautiful and creative minds in the industry, which we in our lifetime have come across, it's none other than Mani Ratnam, sir. Even a small pond or a waterfall looks very different, or a flower or a mountain looks very different when Mani sir sees it and shows it through his lenses. We have all grown on the Mani sir's films. And sir, you are one of the most beautiful and creative minds. Thank you very much for being with us and sharing your thoughts. And when you said that big cinema is going to remain big cinema, and you are the one person who dares to make big cinema, I think God should bless you with much more strength in all your endeavors, and we will pray for your success. Sir, one request, Gandhiji always said, India lives in its villages, and we dream of a good India, and we would like to see India, a dream India through your eyes, with a rural backdrop, with a rural theme, which affects the common man's lives. One day we would like to see India through your eyes. And that's the time when we are waiting, and that too, the future India. So we want to see India through your eyes, and we shall look forward for one such day from a mind like Mani Ratnam sir. Sir, thank you very much for being part of this evening, and your presence added a lot of value to this webinar of ours. We also have the presence of past presidents of the SICCI, Avm Bala sir. Sir, Balu sir, we as children and as adults, we have grown on Avm films. This was one house which used to make family for movies for all family. For every member of the family could go and see films, Avm films. And that's how we have grown on Avm films. Thank you for bringing in Mani sir today and also adding value to this webinar. We also have the presence of one of the most iconic stars of the Tamil film industry, and this, I could say that this part of South cannot be obvious of Radhika Sarath Kumar. She's one of the most iconic artists whom we have seen grow and grow, and from an artist, cine artist, to grow into one of the big production houses. Welcome, ma'am, and thank you very much for being present and sharing your thoughts with us. And to Vikram Prabhu sir, I never knew that I will see you on a web webinar, because I stay just across your house. Ravi knows where I stay. Whenever I have to give my address, I say it's opposite Shivaji sir's house. And it's such a pleasure listening to you this evening. And on behalf of MITRAA and on behalf of SICCI, we thank you very much. And to Mohan Raman sir, thank you very much for being part of this panel and sharing your thoughts. And to Sanjay Wadhwaji, I think you are the one big name. If the industry cannot survive without Sanjay Wadhwaji. And we have heard so much about you. And to see you on screen today, you need not have been an artist or a cine artist or a cine hero to be here. But I know you're a hero to all the producers and the production houses in India. So thank you for joining us, Wadhwaji. And to all other panelists, if I have missed out any name, I'm really sorry, because I don't have access to further names. So thank you everybody for being with us. And I should also thank my president, Ganapati, for initiating such meaningful and cerebral webinars. And we have been back to back on some very good webinars. And this was, to date, the most, I could say, in terms of numericals, it has passed 300 crore collection. So that is the effect of this webinar.
In fact, Sanjay ji, if I can chip in, I think from a SICCI standpoint, I would like to say thank everybody and say that in these imperfect times, this has been a perfect moment for all of us.
Yeah, sir, and may I draw the attention of this people who are on the webinar today. Great thanks to all the people who have joined this webinar. And now, the most handsome man whom I have been interacting with in recent times is T.S. Sudhir, and I've always fallen in love with all his shirts. And today's kurti was something very nice. I should compliment you, Sudhir. And the way Sudhir has been navigating all the webinars for us, and today's webinar especially stood out. And the way he conducted the entire webinar. Thanks, Sudhir, for conducting this webinar so well for us. And you could take care of all the panelists in one go in such a short span, because time was a constraint. But yes, you could take care of all the participants. Thank you very much. And I'm just drawing the attention of all the panelists and all the guests. We are having our webinar tomorrow on the future of India and the support system. We'll have Mr. Subodh Bhargav, the non-executive director of L&T, and Mr. Brijeshwar Singh, former chairman of National Highway Authority India, speaking to us. So please join us for tomorrow's session. And finally, but not the least, a big thanks to Ravi Sena Reddy of Sri City, without whose help this webinar would not have been possible. And sir, you are being a good friend of SICCI and also a good well-wisher of MITRAA. So on behalf of MITRAA and SICCI, a great thanks to you, and we look forward for further support from you. So thank you everybody, and back to Sudhir.
Very much.
Thanks, folks. Stay safe and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.